Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Jupiter cazimi that is taking place in the early degrees of Cancer. If you're not familiar with that concept, I'll tell you a little bit more about it, but what it essentially means is that the Sun is at the exact same degree down to the same minute as Jupiter. That constitutes a reset in the synodic cycle of Jupiter and the Sun, which is a really important moment in the life cycle of Jupiter. And we're going to take a look at this today from the standpoint of my 5 things to watch for exercise, which you guys know I love to do on this channel. Let's spin the archetypal jewel and see what kinds of qualities come through when the Sun is conjoining Jupiter. Now, this is also happening just before a new moon in the sign of Cancer that we are going to be doing some horoscopes on. So tomorrow we'll look at that new moon in Cancer and give you some ideas about what this new moon cycle and the Jupiter cazimi might be activating or speaking to in your life based on the whole sign house placement in your birth chart. So that's how we'll approach things. Before we get into it today, as always, remember to like and subscribe. I hope that this is a place for people to, this is like a daily spiritual home for your practice of astrology. And if that's the case, liking and subscribing helps us grow tremendously. We really appreciate it. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on my website, which is nightlightastrology.com. When you are over there, there's only one promotion to hit today. Let me take you over to the website briefly to plug our monthly webinars. If you go up to the events page, click on live talks, you will see that July 10th, I'm giving a talk on the 9th house. So if you want to take a real deep dive into the ancient philosophical underpinnings of the 9th house in both Eastern and Western astrology, this is going to be a talk for you. It will help you understand more about the 9th house in your own birth chart. You can register for that. If you cannot attend the live webinar that is taking place from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern time on July 10th, then you will get the recording, the replay afterward. So I hope to see some of you there. All right. On that note, let us shift our attention to the real-time clock. Here we go. And where is my epic pen? You're missing. Okay, here we go. So what you will notice is that today is Tuesday, June 24th, and we have the cazimi. This is it right here. Jupiter and the Sun are together at the same degree. Now that was forming yesterday, but if we take this forward hour at a time, let's take a look at when the Sun crosses into that 3rd degree, which was early this morning. I've got it around 2:30 a.m. or so Central Time. We take that forward just a little bit more, and we're going to see that the 2 planets conjoin down to the minute by, this is like what, about 10:30, I guess, Central Time this morning. So that conjunction down to the minute we call a cazimi, and cazimi means at the heart of the Sun. When that happens within any planet's synodic cycle with the Sun, it is a moment of rebirth. The gradually approaching conjunction of the Sun to any of the other planets, or a faster moving planet to the Sun, is considered a kind of a natural end of the planet's phase or its life cycle. And so there's often a death that accompanies the close proximity of the Sun with Jupiter, followed by a rebirth at the cazimi or conjunction. It's considered to be a greatly empowered moment for the planet receiving the cazimi. When a planet is in its own sign or its exaltation, it's said to be protected in its own chariot. This basically means that it avoids the kind of worst case unraveling and destructive qualities of the combustion that comes just prior to the cazimi reset. So we have a Jupiter that is dying and being reborn in the last week or two, but kind of saved from the worst part of that by virtue of Jupiter crossing into its own exaltation around June 9th. And since that has taken place, we now have the reset happening. And then by Wednesday, we have a new moon in Cancer. Actually, let me show you that really briefly before we move ahead, because we're going to be taking a look at that new moon in Cancer tomorrow through some horoscopes. So here you can see that the moon is conjoining the Sun. This is tomorrow morning about 6 a.m. Central Time. So between today and tomorrow, we get the cazimi, and then immediately the new moon that's coming right off from the conjunction to Jupiter. We might as well call it a new moon conjunct Jupiter. So for that reason, tomorrow we're going to hit horoscopes and give you something to think about with respect to the entirety of the lunation cycle, as well as this Jupiter cazimi moment that's going to be more relevant to your birth chart. Today, what I want to do is give you 5 things to watch for, considering this moment of the sun conjoining Jupiter, resetting its synodic cycle, but keeping in mind that this is the beginning of a new moon cycle as well. Might as well lump the two together in this 5 things to watch for list. So the first thing on my list, and these are in no particular order, is that this new moon may provide us with something or someone new to love. The reason I say that is that Cancer is one of the most romantic signs of the zodiac. It is an emotional water sign that likes to create emotional bonds and connection with other people, emotional intimacy, depth. The healthiest version of emotional attachment and bondedness to other beings is really one of the best parts of the sign of Cancer. Of course, there's complications that can arise through neediness, words like codependency or problematic or complicated attachments. Those can all be maybe some of the shadows of the sign of Cancer. But we have an exalted Jupiter here in the sign of Cancer, a new moon forming at the cazimi between the sun and Jupiter, which marks a new beginning. And one of the hallmarks of the new beginnings that we describe as Cancerian is that the beginning is marked by the birth of something, like a baby, like a puppy, or like the early life of plants you're watering in your garden. There's something new, maybe tender, vulnerable, sweet, soft, but something new that requires care, devotion, nurturance, that you have to bond yourself to because it requires that bonding to grow. So one way of looking at this beautiful Jupiter cazimi that's coming through is in terms of what new beginnings might be taking place that require love and attachment, that require care and nurturance, that not only constitute a new beginning, but a new kind of emotional connectedness or a new bond of some kind. So that's number 1 on my list. Number 2 would be a fertile new beginning. Now, this one to me is also very important because the Jupiter was the planet that was associated with sperm broadly speaking, more broadly, energetically, metaphysically speaking, associated with the proliferation of life and with fertility, as is the moon, the other co-host of the sign of Cancer. We have a new moon in Cancer, its own domicile, with a Jupiter cazimi in the sign of Cancer. One way of looking at this is that things will grow, that there is a very fertile starting point for something that has a very good chance of developing. For example, if I were an electional astrologer, I might look at this, depending on what type of business, of course, as a very fertile place to launch a new product or to start a new business, a very fertile place under which to attempt to get pregnant or to start a marriage or to begin the process of purchasing a home. The fertility of this placement suggests that there's a lot of promise in terms of something that is started actually bearing fruit and flourishing. So I think many people will look back to, late June, early July. There's some other transits too, like Uranus is about to enter Gemini. We've had a Jupiter-Neptune square, which is also can be very fertile. But I bet we'll be looking back at this period of time in, an episode down the road. I'll be doing here's how to map out the Jupiter-Neptune cycle, or here's how to map out the last time Jupiter was in Cancer, or what have you. And you'll be looking at this synodic reset as the moment in which something that eventually really bore fruit, like imagine planting an apple tree, and it just eventually provides such sweet fruit on its branches. So think of this as the potential for something that has a lot of promise to flourish in time getting started. Number 3 would be the wisdom of the goddess. Jupiter, broadly speaking, has an association with wisdom and understanding, and has a close connection to the direction of our sense of life purpose, and so forth. I'm going to talk more about that generally in number 4, but Specifically, when Jupiter in Cancer is seated at the throne of the sun, at the heart of the sun, that cazimi, and then the wisdom of the goddess comes right through the same little portal. It makes me feel as though there may be something speaking very loudly right now that constitutes the wisdom of the feminine. Now, that feminine energy is, I think, energetic, metaphorical, archetypal. It doesn't have to be literally associated with gender or sex, but certainly it will show up in that way for many people, for sure. But think about it, fluidly in terms of how you might actually see that in your life. I know that dimension of my own psyche, as someone who identifies as a male, is still going to play a strong role. I have Cancer Sun and Mercury in Cancer in my own chart, right? So that feminine voicing has a strong presence in my life. It always has. But you may notice, regardless of what your own chart looks like, that this kind of the philosophical wisdom of the goddess is present. Now, what are some of the features of the goddess that we may notice? An emphasis on the here and now of the physical, incarnate, sensual, embodied world, of relationships, of reality primarily as relational and alive, as a matrix of living beings that are ecologically interdependent, that we should consider the land and nature sacred, that our greatest responsibilities are for care and stewardship of each other's well-being, that we are living in a kind of ecology of care and concern for others. Those are many of the hallmarks of sort of Cancerian goddess wisdom, but also tending to and keeping the past, sacred guardianship of feminine rites of passage, or of the wisdom of a woman's menstrual cycle and its association with the moon. All of these things, very ancient, kind of primitive goddess qualities. I would watch specifically for feminine leaders, voices, and direction to come forth from a voicing that feels powerfully feminine. Let's go on to number 4, a clarified sense of direction, purpose, and belief. Now, in general, the Jupiter-Saturn square, the Jupiter-Neptune square, they both tend to coincide with very important moments of reevaluating our sense of direction, purpose, belief, and often breathing new inspiration, life, fantasy, imagination into our sense of direction and life purpose with Jupiter-Neptune, coming up against the limits of previous beliefs, or kind of crossing over a threshold between one era and another paradigmatically when Jupiter hits Saturn. We've talked a lot about that on the channel in the past few weeks. Those encounters for Jupiter alongside of the cazimi and the new moon around Jupiter could just broadly suggest that there is a very new, very clear sense of direction, purpose, or belief that is inspiring you to create change in your life. Sometimes that understanding will be unique to one particular dimension of your life: relationships, job, parenting, siblings, family, home, health. But think about where a new sense of clarity and a new sense of purpose, and therefore a new direction, is slowly starting to form. It's very fertile, and coming off from the Jupiter-Saturn, Jupiter-Neptune square really does represent a moment where the work is to enable this new direction, purpose, or philosophy to instantiate itself in a different area of our life through new systems or structures or forms that we can start building from this moment forward. So it really is about putting beliefs into action, new beliefs forming new understanding or wisdom that crystallizes in terms of new structures, new habits, new disciplines, new organizational structures in life. You'll start to see that growing forward from this moment. So just broadly speaking, it's sort of this new moon in Kazimi just sort of says, yes, this new philosophy, this new understanding is ready to take you forward. Number 5 would be insight, maybe healing or insight into family or ancestral karma. The Kazimi and the new moon together with an exalted Jupiter here could speak very directly to family karma, parental karma, the kinds of patterns that are healthy or destructive, and a sense of gaining clarity or maybe insight into the nature of those patterns and that place in your life. Um, I feel like when I look back at the last Jupiter in Cancer period, it was really like kind of intriguing and bizarre, was that my parents went through a divorce. That was very painful, but at the same time, I got engaged and was on the path to starting my own family. And so there's this very weird way in which the Jupiter in Cancer, and especially the new moon that forms right here at the same time, can kind of suggest that there's ancestral or family healing that's going to take place. That the insight or understanding we're speaking of, the wisdom or philosophy of Jupiter, is very specific to the topics of home, family, maybe your living environment, the right place to live, like the where of it or the how of it, and what constitutes a feeling of emotional safety and at homeness in the world. And maybe some of that is relative to understanding that's coming through about, the baggage of the past in home and around home and family, or and whether that's insight or that's literal healing that's being done with family members. I think that's pretty wide open. So, but look for these as real poignant themes that could come up, not just now, but in the entirety of the moon cycle ahead. So these are just 5 things that I would watch for, given the combination of Jupiter resetting at the heart of the sun with a new moon following. Tomorrow, what I'm going to do is we're going to do some horoscopes for all 12 signs, given the new moon, the conjunction of Jupiter and the sun. And that should hopefully give you some grounding in the topical place of Cancer in your birth chart. So I will leave you there for today. I hope you're having a good one, and we will see you again tomorrow. Bye, everyone.